This week, the trial against Miles Guo started in New York. He is accused of committing $1 billion of fraud. I've been researching this case for over a year, and I am convinced this man is innocent. I will explain why this week on Wolves in Finance. Let me start by saying that I am completely independent. I don't know this person, and I'm not associated with his groups. I'm just an accountant. I keep covering this trial because I see a huge injustice going on that needs to get exposed. If you're a business person in America, you need to be aware of this case, because what is going on is so corrupt that if we don't stop this, it's going to affect you next. I have previously made a video going over all the details in this case. I will link that video at the end of this one if you want to see more. But in this video, I want to focus on the major issues that you should watch out for in this case. This case is about fraud. The government has arrested Miles Guo, seized his business, seized his money, and put him in prison. He is a former Chinese citizen who fled China and started several businesses here in America. He was running several online social media companies, including a website called GTV, which was going to have YouTube-type videos, G News, which is a news website, online membership clubs called G Clubs, a cryptocurrency website, and other social media sites. Miles Guo is also known for fighting for freedom for the Chinese people. He is considered the #1 enemy of the Chinese Communist Party. The US government has now charged him with a long list of crimes that basically say that he lied to his investors and misused company money. What has caught my attention about this case is that it's unlike any other fraud case I have ever seen. Let's go over what a fraud case typically looks like. Do you remember someone named Bernie Madoff? He ran the largest Ponzi scheme in history, worth $65 billion. This happened during the stock market crash in 2008. He was claiming to run an investment company, and he would take people's money, but instead of investing it, he would just take it. That is a fraud. So many people lost their life savings. A lot of the money has never been recovered. How about a more recent fraud? Do you know about Sam Bankman-Fried? He was running the crypto firm FTX when it went bankrupt. He was telling people to deposit money into trading accounts, and then he was spending their money. That is a fraud. FTX went bankrupt in 2022. People are still trying to get their money back 2 years later. Just this month, FTX announced that most people will receive their money back. But what they fail to mention is that Bitcoin is 3 times higher today than when FTX went bankrupt. So FTX is only paying people 1/3 of what they should have gotten. Sam spent 2/3 of their money. So how does Miles Guo compare with Bernie Madoff and Sam Bankman-Fried? Well, to start with, Miles Guo has been held in prison without bail, waiting for his trial. He was arrested on March 15th, 2023. They have been holding him in prison for over a year. This shocked me. This is extremely unusual for a fraud case. Bernie Madoff was released on bail, waiting for his trial. Sam Bankman-Fried was released on bail, waiting for his trial. Why is this judge treating Miles differently? This is in New York, where they're letting most prisoners out on bail. But for some reason, this one prisoner is being held in prison for over a year without a trial. Let's take a closer look at what's going on. There are 3 main reasons why I believe Miles Guo is innocent. Number 1, investors are not complaining. Miles has a lot of investors, and they're happy with him. But they're not just happy. They get together and have rallies and cheer for him. That is how happy his investors are. When was the last time you met a stockholder in any company who was attending rallies and cheering for their company? That doesn't happen often. I'm sorry, but you cannot have a fraud if your investors are happy. It's literally the opposite of fraud. You're doing what investors want. The second reason Miles is innocent is that no money is missing. We know where all the money is because the government seized all of it. If the money's not missing, there are no victims. How can there be a fraud with no victims? The only reason these people don't have their money today is because the government took it all. The third reason that Miles is innocent is that he delivered results. He told investors that if they invested in his business, he would build social media companies. And he did exactly what he said he was going to do. We can see it with our own eyes. We can see the videos he made. We can see the social media websites. Normally, fraud cases are about making promises and then breaking those promises. In this case, Miles made promises and then delivered spectacularly. Now let's do some comparison. Remember Bernie Madoff? Were any of his investors cheering for him? No, that didn't happen. What about Sam Bankman-Fried? No, the whole internet was complaining about Sam Bankman-Fried. No one was cheering for him. So for Miles to have people cheering for him makes me believe that he is innocent. There's only one other fraud case that I can think of where investors wanted to continue to invest. That was the case with Donald J. Trump. Trump was arrested by the state of New York claiming that he defrauded the banks by misvaluing his properties. The judge claimed that Mar-a-Lago was only worth $18 million, and he convicted Trump of fraud. Any reasonable person knows that $18 million is a ridiculously low estimate of Mar-a-Lago's value, and this judge's decision looks politically motivated. But what was so shocking was that the bankers testified at the trial that they wanted to continue to invest with Trump. If the investors are happy, it's not fraud. Donald Trump is the only other fraud case I know of where the investors were happy. And that case was obviously political corruption. This case with Miles Guo is the same situation. Let's do a comparison with the money. In the case with Bernie Madoff, he took the money and a lot of it was never recovered. Sam Bankman-Fried took the money and the bankruptcy court has spent the last 2 years trying to find it all. None of the money in this case is missing. We know where it all is. The government has it. How can Miles have committed fraud when he didn't take the money? I have made a list of all the bank accounts seized by the government. It totals to $720 million in cash. It also lists several properties that would make up the rest of the $1 billion. What is really scary about this indictment is that it requests the court turn over all the money to the U.S. government. The government is trying to steal $720 million. Now let's do a comparison on the results. In the case with Bernie Madoff, there was no results because he wasn't investing anything. With Sam Bankman-Fried, he went bankrupt. Now, I'm an accountant, so I pay close attention to results. Miles' companies had spectacular results in a very short time. He was generating revenue, he had paying members, and his websites got a lot of traffic. It's very hard to get traffic to your social media site. He did it, and he did it quickly. I'm beginning to think that this guy is a business genius. These were not empty promises. These were actual measurable results. How can this be a fraud if he actually was getting the results he was promising investors? The only reason the company stopped growing is because the government stepped in and seized everything. It's blowing my mind how absurd this case is. If you were to go to a venture capitalist and tell them that you have online businesses with revenue, paid memberships, and a huge amount of traffic, they would be so excited, they would be throwing money at you to invest. If you're delivering on your promises, it cannot be a fraud. Once again, that's the opposite of fraud. So under these three criteria, that the investors are happy, no money is missing, and he delivered results, if those three things happen, there is no fraud. Remember that the jury has to decide that Miles Guo is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. If Miles has investors who are cheering for him, I certainly have some doubt. If Miles receives a fair trial, I don't see how he could be convicted. The problem is that in New York courtrooms lately, we've been seeing a lot of corruption. Here's what I think is really going on. This case is not really even about fraud. This is really about China. The current leader of Communist China, Xi Jinping, wants Miles Guo. He's been very vocal about this. He talked to Donald Trump about this. I'm pretty sure he's talked to Joe Biden about this. Now, the US has no extradition treaty with China, so there's no legal way for the US to send Miles Guo back to China, except under one situation. If Miles Guo is convicted of a crime. If they can convict him of even one of the charges in this case, they can deport him back to China. It's the only way they can do it. This court case is really about delivering Miles Guo into the hands of Xi Jinping. In my opinion, if Miles Guo is sent back to China, Xi Jinping will have him publicly executed. Miles is going to be put to death because of a fraud case where he's innocent. How is this happening in America? How can this judge and these prosecutors sleep at night? They are doing the dirty work of the Chinese Communist Party. I'm not an expert of Chinese culture, but it's my understanding that the name Guo in China comes from the meaning of a wall. I think that's a fitting name for Miles Guo, because he is standing as a wall against the Chinese Communist Party. He's standing in the way and taking this persecution so that we don't have to. If he's put to death, God help us all. I have one message to any investors out there that support what this man is doing. Keep fighting against this case. Fight like his life depends on it, because it probably does. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think that Miles Guo is innocent? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you like this video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future videos. If you like these videos, consider signing up for a monthly membership on my website, wolvesandfinance.com. There are so few places where you can get honest reporting that you can trust. Your support helps me to keep making these videos. So I want to give a big thank you to all my members. I'm Zach from Wolves and Finance. Thank you for watching.